Hi everyone, how's it going? Recently I've pretty much stopped watching the news because it's so depressing. It just doesn't help. It just gets me all riled up. And so, pretty much my only proof that the outside world is still going on is when I get books through the mail. So, I'm always so happy when a book comes through my letterbox. So, I want to talk about some of books that I've received recently and that I'm excited to read. A lot of these have been kindly sent to me by publishers. Although, the first book I want to talk about is one that I bought called The Journal of a Disappointed Man and a Last Diary by W.N.P. Barbellion. And I bought this book because my friend Claire highly, highly recommended it and kept saying, like, I keep telling everyone you have to read this book. So I'm like, okay, I'll finally get a copy of it. So I ordered this book. It was written in he's an author from the late 1800s and the early 1900s. He died at quite a young age in his late 20s, and he suffered from multiple sclerosis, and he writes about that experience and about how he wanted to become a soldier, how he was working in the Natural History Museum, and he talks about his experiences about that. It's supposed to be incredibly moving, and also excitingly, somebody got in touch with me through email at the end of last year, saying that they wanted to start a book prize dedicated to the writing about the disabled experience and about people who live with long-term chronic physical problems, and so he's actually started a prize named after this author called the Barbellion Prize, and there he's receiving entries for that prize now, and the first award for that prize is going to be in the beginning of 2021. So I'll put a link down to that prize. He has a website now, so I'll put a link down to that website in the description below. So if you're interested in that, and you can check more about that there. But yeah, I'm really eager to read this book because it's supposed to be very, very moving. Next is a book which couldn't be more relevant. It's a new anthology responding to the current pandemic from writers based all around the world. So I'm so impressed by how quickly this anthology was put together and how quickly these writers responded to their experiences of the global health crisis. It's called Tools for Extinction. It's published by Lolly Press. It was compiled by Denise Rose Hansen, and there's a whole group of really interesting authors in it, including Olivia Sujek and Joanna Walsh, who's a really interesting writer, and two authors who were longlisted for the Booker International Prize, both Enrique Villa-Matas and John Fosse, the Norwegian writer, or I'm not sure if you pronounce his name John Foss or John Fosse, it's like Fosse, but yeah, I loved his novel so much, and so yeah, I'd be really interested to read his essay and a number of these essays, because yeah, I think it'll be so interesting to see how these different authors responded to the pandemic and just their thoughts of being plunged into this whole process. So these are all the different authors included in this anthology, and yeah, I'm very curious about this. Next, I have a new novel which sounds so good. It's Indelicacy by Amina Cain. So this is described as a ghostly feminist fable, which yeah, really intrigues me. And it's about a woman who works as a cleaner in an art museum but wants more in her life and aspires to more of that. So she marries a very wealthy man, but then she finds she's has different constraints than she had before, and it's about her struggles for that. And it's described by the author Danielle Dutton, who wrote Margaret the First. She describes it as reading this novel is a bit like standing in a painting. A masterful study of light and dark, inside and out, freedom and desire. Then I have two new Irish books. I'm always talking about new Irish books. The first is probably my favorite title out of all the books on the list. It's Okay, Let's Do Your Stupid Idea by Patrick Freyne. And so this is meant to be in the style of David Sedaris or Nora Ephron, where it's chronicling his life and all of the stupid things that he's done in his life, and and talking about that. So yeah, sounds like really fun and a really fun way of looking at your life like that. And then I have a new novel called The Truth Must Dazzle Gradually by Helen Cullen. It's about a family who meets on an island in Ireland, and discussing the sort of secrets of their lives come out as they interact with each other over this period of being together. A Man Who Is Not a Man by Thando Mgqolozana. This is a South African novel about a young Xhosa man who undergoes a ritualized rites of passage circumcision, which goes wrong. And so I'm already like crossing my legs thinking about reading this novel. But this, and so it's about the trauma of that and the lifelong shame that he experiences after that. And this novel was the inspiration for a film that I saw called The Wound, which was such a powerful and beautiful film. It was one of my favorite films that I saw that year that it came out. I saw it at the London Film Festival, and so I'm very eager to read the novel that inspired this. It's just been published in the UK by Cassava Press, which publishes a lot of African fiction. The Residue Years by Mitchell S. Jackson. This is a debut novel about a mother and son relationship, about a young black man who sort of takes responsibility for his family and the care of his mother when his mother is suffering from being a drug addict, and she tries to overcome that. And so it's sort of a dual narrative about their two lives. So yeah, it's meant to be really good. Then I have two new books of short stories, and the first one, it has really beautiful cover. A Registry of My Passage Upon the Earth by Daniel Mason. And I've not read this author before, but he's a historical fiction writer, and this is his first book of short stories. And so I think a lot of these stories are about sort of take place in different historical time periods and are about the natural world, and it's just so gorgeous, isn't it? The cover of this. But his previous novel of his called The Winter Soldier just recently, this book won there's a Joyce Carol Oates Prize in America, and she personally doesn't have anything to do with the prize, but the prize was named after her. It's a prize for, I think, like mid-career writers, and so yeah, this novel just won that prize, and of course it's Joyce Carol Oates, so I'm interested that there's a book award called the Joyce Carol Oates Prize. Then there is a new collection of short stories by Richard Ford called Sorry for Your Trouble. And this is an author that I feel a bit conflicted about, because I've read his fiction in the past. I've really enjoyed it, but he's somebody who, since like in recent years, I've heard stories about his conduct and character, which has sort of put me off from wanting to read him again, because there's this story about how a previous book of his short stories was reviewed by the author Colson Whitehead, and Colson Whitehead wrote a somewhat negative review of that book of short stories, and when Richard Ford saw him in person, he confronted him and actually spit in his face. And so Colson Whitehead took this very graciously, and he sort of joked since then that you should be wearing a poncho if you ever come across Richard Ford, because he might spit on you. But yeah, that's just so egregious and horrible, and I can't believe that an author would take a review that like bitterly, that he would actually attack another author in that way. I know it wasn't like physically harmful, but it's so awful that he did that. I sort of like can't believe it. It makes me not want to read him again. It's just kind of gross, and that he's so unapologetic before. Like, I think he's been confronted about this incident since then, and he sort of doesn't feel any differently about it. And so that's just that lack of feeling shame or remorse about doing that is so awful. So I feel really uncertain. Most of the time I feel like, well, we should kind of separate the books from the personal life of the author, but we all know you can't really do that. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this, or whether I want to read Richard Ford again. But, again, like, he often writes about relationships and the struggles of relationships. And I think a lot of these stories deal with that again. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel really conflicted about it. And finally, somewhat more happily, I have a new historical fiction novel, which was supposed to be published this month, but I think publishing of it has been delayed up until beginning of 2021. So it'll be quite a while before this novel actually comes out. But I'm keen to read it because it's by Kate Mosse, who's the founder of the Women's Prize, and she writes historical fiction novels. And this is one set in the 1500s, I think, in France. And yeah, and it's quite a long novel. She writes quite long novels. It's over 500 pages long. But as I've been talking about in a video recently about long books that are worth reading, and this is the time to be reading some more long books. So yeah, I'm so hoping to try this over the next several months before it's actually published. So those are all the books that I want to talk about. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books, which ones you're keen to read or curious to read, and yeah, about this whole issue about Richard Ford. Is he an author you like, or that you would still be interested in reading after hearing about this experience? I mean, it's sort of comforting to know that Richard Ford must have been gnashing his teeth when Colson Whitehead won the Pulitzer Prize for the second time this year for The Nickel Boys. Yeah, I'm so happy that he won the Pulitzer Prize for that, because such a great novel that deserved more recognition. Was one of my favorites of last year. And so yeah, anyway, those are all the books. Yeah, let's have a chat in the comments below. I hope you're reading good things, and I'll chat to you again soon. Bye, everyone.